I play Cheryl Blossom, the lead villain on the show, and I mean, first off, being a redhead in the industry, I feel like you very rarely get redhead-specific roles. So the minute I read this, and I knew who Cheryl was, I've read the Archie comics my whole life, I was extremely excited, A, because she's a bad girl, and who doesn't want to play the bad girl? It's the most fun role to play. And B, because she's a redhead, and it's so close to home. I mean, Archie is so close to my family, and when my parents heard that I booked it, it was such a big thing for the whole family to rejoice over, because it's not something that I have to explain to them. They fully well know who the Archie comics are and who we are, so it's an iconic character. It's big shoes to fill, but since we're so close yet so far away from the actual Archie comics universe, I think that it's like the perfect blend of both of them for me.
To play Cheryl, is it fun to be able to unleash your inner mean girl, and have you ever broken up delivering some of her lines?
You know, some of the things that I say are very, very, very witty, and so it does make it, especially because all these people are like my best friends, so being mean to them outwardly all the time is a little difficult, let me tell you straightforward. But with that being said, it is nice to unleash the bad side a little bit, and they write me such great witty lines that I'll read it when I'm getting the script and I die of laughter sometimes, because it's so well written, like things that I could never even come up with, but fit Cheryl perfectly because she's like the witty, sarcastic, humorous, and bitchy character.
Mm-hmm. How's it gonna kind of affect, we've seen the pilot.
Right.
How's it gonna affect you going forward that I would assume a good chunk of the town assumes that you killed your brother?
First of all, love your crown. Looks great.
Thank you.
It does affect Cheryl very deeply, and I think the beauty of my character specifically is that she's not your atypical villain. Mm-hmm. Most villains are there to serve their purpose, and that's about it. Cheryl gets the emotional side as well, so you get to see where she comes from and why it affects her so much, and people do obviously assume that I did it. The majority of the town does, and so that does affect very poorly on her, including her parents. Like, her parents also wonder, like, what does she know? And you find out more in the episodes that there's a lot more that I haven't told anybody that I do know about his death. And it does affect her in a very emotional way because she feels like she has nobody. You know, she's alone. She lost her closest confidant, is now dead, and she doesn't have any friends. She's got minions who kind of hate her and want to take her spot. So she's got this very weird situation where she's all alone, she's lost her brother, and nobody believes her that she had nothing to do with it.
We learn about Cheryl's connection to Betty and the pilot, or their family, I guess,
right,
to the Blossom family. And we also just saw you filming a scene together. Can you talk a little bit about what the dynamic is between Cheryl and Betty?
In the beginning of this season, Cheryl hates Betty because Polly and Jason dated, and Polly is Betty's sister, and I'm in love with Jason, and he's the only person I've ever loved and who loves me unconditionally. So it's tough because I kind of blame her for taking him away from me. And then as the season continues, we grow close because I'm trying not to be too obvious. They grow close because of events that kind of unravel as the season opens, and we end up kind of forming a very strange and unusual bond.
In the comic books, they had the Afterlife with Archie zombie series, and they've been talking about doing that on this show. Would you like to see it, and might we see a zombie Jason at that point?
It's a very good question. You might see a zombie Jason. That was a really, really good question. I love Afterlife with Archie, and I would love to do that. Originally, we had talked about doing a Halloween episode that was like that. Unfortunately, we don't air around October at all, so we won't be able to do that. But knowing the writer and knowing that he is the writer of Afterlife with Archie, he would love to do that, and I'm sure he finds ways to sneak everything in. So he will definitely sneak that in as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, since her brother was the only person that she ever loved, as you said, I don't know, is that going to be something that we'll see throughout the season, or will she start to develop feelings for someone else, or even just out of spite, you know, she sees that everybody is going after Archie, so right, she wants this thing that everyone else wants.
It seems like you get Cheryl. I asked the same question when we first started this season, and we kind of toggle between those two ideas. Truly, Cheryl is so broken up about the loss of her brother and the person who loved her more than anybody, and he's the only person she's ever emoted unconditional love to. She doesn't have a close relationship with her family at all. So throughout the season, I think you'll see a hint of her maybe slowly kind of transitioning out of that depression, but you won't see any love interests this season. I think it's just Jason.
Ashley mentioned that Cheryl and Josie have a fun dynamic. Can you talk a little bit about that?
We do. We're kind of like it's very interesting because I feel like we've got a very interesting social hierarchy in our high school, and both Josie and I, although we never really interact too often, kind of have an understanding that we're both the queen bees of the school. Although I obviously am more of a queen bee naturally. She kind of like rules the musical side of the school, and I don't really mess with that. And I'm the head cheerleader, and I kind of rule that era. And I think we rule together, but we don't really talk about it that often. So there are moments when you see us interact where you realize that we actually are quite good friends, but we don't really talk that often because I think it's like a mutual understanding thing.
I know you mentioned no love interest for her in season 1 beyond Jason, but considering she's had a thing for a redhead before, do you think she'll ever start chasing after Archie?
You know, I do. I do think that. I haven't heard that, but I've heard some whisperings, and and because our family is so redhead focused, I wouldn't be surprised if you see my parents forcing me into some interesting situations with Archie as well.
Well, expand on that a little bit, just as far as your family goes. Is even though this is so much about the teenagers, how involved are adults in this story and your parents in particular?
Right. Well, this is not just a teenager show, which is why I think this is so different for the CW specifically. We've got the parents have their own world and their own drama going on that kind of integrates very well into us as well. I mean, we've got Hermione and Fred, and we've got Alice, and we've got Hal. We've got all these different people who play such key roles on the show. My parents do pop in and out quite often since their son has died. And you see a very interesting dynamic with the way that the parents kind of play with the kids. So like everybody has you see the relationships between the families, which is so important. And the relationship between my family is not good. And you really see that unravel between like 1 and 5, really.
Is there a specific episode in the first bunch of episodes that's a really good Cheryl?
Number 5.
Okay. Can you tease a little bit more about that?
Number 5 is my brother's memorial. So you get to see it's all of my family stuff unraveling, and you get kind of the secrets between the Blossoms and the Coopers. It goes back beyond the Polly and Jason stuff, and you get to kind of learn more about that.
Are we going to see any sort of flashback type thing with Jason at any point?
Absolutely, you will. I mean, you saw some in the pilot, and that'll be a continuing motif until I think we find out who murdered him.
What's the time frame of these episodes? Like, is it is episode 5 if we're getting to his memorial then?
They're kind of back to back. So like right when the pilot's over, we kind of go straight into episode 2 days later. It's very quick, short days in between. Some are like 3 to 4 days, and there's like maybe a day in between the next episode. Like we're very short spans of time right now.